Welcome to another edition of the Pure Signal podcast. My name, of course, is Ryan Medellin, joined alongside my best friends, my partners. We got our North America CEO, Kevin Erickson, and our Chief Innovation Officer globally, Jake Carter. Guys, what a day it's been. It's Friday here. This will probably come out on a Tuesday, but it's been a busy Friday, especially for you two, making an appearance in the very important North America All Hands, referencing some of the things that our episode today will cover. So you got a little bit of prep work in covering those topics for the company, but now we're going to cover it for you. Yes, you, those who are leading businesses and initiatives across industries and verticals and all of that good stuff. But yeah, our goal here at Pure Signal, bringing you the latest and greatest in machine learning, AI, innovation, and more. And today it's a very, very hot topic. This thing is hot off the press, and who better to talk about that than our king of commerce, Olin Moran, partner at Credera. And Olin, one of the things we like to have our guests do as they join the pod is we want to make sure people understand we're not just bringing any Yahoo guest on this podcast. We're bringing people that can bring you the hard-hitting facts and insights that you are looking for your business. So Olin, would love for you to we'll say establish your credentials, and then some big news happening for Q1 for Omnicom, and we'll hit on that, and would love for you to talk us through that, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Olin Moran, tenured at Credera for 12 years now. As the credentials, I've been doing commerce for 18 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. Started in 2008. Really focused on as an e-commerce analyst. So really kind of entry point. Funny story is I had just come from the restaurant industry, right? So I owned my restaurant and then moved into e-commerce. And I mentioned this because it really touches on a lot of the themes that we'll see in the kind of coming out the Forrester. But what really attracted me to the space was the data behind it, coming from a business where all of the decisions that I made were, feedback from customers, some point of sales data, but at the end of the day, it was very kind of, gut feeling and, make decisions based on what you're observing. Moving to a business where you're seeing tons and tons of data, you understanding how your customers are interacting, and seeing and being able to use that data to make decisions was really what drew me to the space. And then kind of seeing that continue to evolve and continue to see how data becomes such an integral part of what commerce is today has been a really amazing journey. Like I mentioned, started in e-commerce in 2008, moved to Credera in 2013, and that's really when I started to think about the commerce experience in a different way, started to think more about a holistic kind of customer experience. And then you kind of continue to progress through the shifts that commerce has had, seeing some of the things with kind of social commerce and eventually now retail media, and kind of seeing and being part of those shifts has been really, really special. And the Forrester Wave recognition really validated kind of how data is at the crux of the companies that are winning. You can't just interact in individual channels. And one of the reasons and the story that we tell from an Omnicom standpoint is that the ones that are able to integrate their data are the ones that are going to win, right? So super proud of the team for the role that we played in that recognition, and excited to see how we continue to evolve our offerings as an Omnicom partner.
Hey, Olin, you mentioned this Forrester thing. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I thought we brought him on because we were going to finally get his world famous brownie recipe. I would thought if we invited him onto our podcast, he'd actually share it, but we're not. Apparently that's not why we brought him on.
We're doing real work today.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Tell us about Forrester, Olin. What is that?
So Forrester does these wave reports. And the one that we submitted last quarter was on the Forrester Commerce Services. So basically looking at how we deliver commerce from an agency standpoint, right? So it's not a product, it's really the services around it. So they look at everything from how we're using AI, how we're delivering media, how we're delivering commerce experiences across all of the different channels. The role that Credera played in that was really from a data enablement standpoint, from a direct to consumer standpoint, really focusing on the strategy side of things, as well as the org design piece of it, right? Which are all strengths of Credera as we've been able to demonstrate in these conversations. And we were positioned as one of the leaders in the space, right?
Well,
One of the leaders.
I know. I was going to say, Ellen was humble when she was on. You're being humble too. By my reading of the report, you were the highest ranked provider in the report. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Yeah. Last time we did this, we were number 2, and this time around we were number 1. I think some of the new acquisitions with Axiom and some of the positioning that we've had and integration with Credera, Flywheel, and the IPG, I think has really elevated that positioning. So again, really exciting to kind of see how we continue to evolve our commerce offerings.
Yeah, I think, Olin, one of the things, establishing that is like, okay, that's awesome, right? Like to see that name at the top. But, what we really love to hear about is what does it take to get to that point, right? What is the effort? What is the strategy behind setting yourself apart in that manner? And not only for Omnicom as a whole, but as a business who is striving to do better in this space or is trying to stay in tune with what's happening, and it's moving rapidly, it's changing quickly. Would love to just kind of dig into that first. And, I know you mentioned orchestration, right? And that's a word a lot of people are hearing a lot now. And I think it's one of those words that you've heard so much that you probably glaze over it when you hear it. But it used to be you'd kind of look at individual parts of a process. And now it seems like really you have to focus on that entire process as a whole, not necessarily all at one time, but how does it all piece together?
Yeah, no, for sure. And before we dive into it, I think it's important to kind of redefine what we mean by commerce. And the way that we look at it is that commerce isn't a channel anymore, right? It really is the layer that's connecting the customer experience to the business outcomes, right? And it's done across all of the channels, right? Before it used to be, here's a website, here's a marketplace or a retail presence, let's go sell, right? So you have your storefront, you build out a direct-to-consumer website, you go through a retailer, and all of those had different teams and different execution. It now has shifted to there's a customer. Where do they want to buy? Where do they want to engage with the brand? What is it that they're looking for, whether it's content, messaging, or products? And how do we orchestrate that across all of those different channels to improve their overall kind of experience and lifetime value? And when it talks about kind of being successful, what Omnicom brings to the table is the ability to merge all of that and bring it together in a cohesive manner, right? You have a massive data ecosystem with Omni. With the addition of Axiom as well in there, it becomes even more powerful. You have the leading retail media agency in Flywheel. You have the consulting expertise and commerce strategy capabilities from Credera. And then your Omnicom kind of agency and marketing capabilities. We are now able to orchestrate those experiences across every channel in a way that arguably no other company can, right? So we're really well positioned, and that award from Forrester is, I think, or that positioning from Forrester is really a recognition of that.
I like where you're going with the shift in thinking about commerce, less as a, hey, this is a channel, more as this is a layer that spans across a bunch of things. My question is, given what you're describing about commerce, where do you draw the boundaries between commerce and, all of the things that are adjacent to that, like customer experience, like, marketing, like MarTech? How do you think about that, given that it's so pervasive?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interrelated. It really is one and the same. I think that there's delineations when it comes to a particular transaction, but even that is muddy, right? I mean, your media from an acquisition standpoint, right? If you look at the entire journey, starts with a point of being recognized, right? So ultimately, the objective is to encourage transactions, but I wouldn't consider that commerce quite yet, right? It's when you're starting to engage, when the customer has started to provide intent, is when I think that kind of delineation can start to come through. But then you look at, well, your customer has already purchased. There's the loyalty aspect of it, right? And in our affinity loop, we have path to purchase and path to passion. The path to passion is such an important piece from a commerce standpoint. Your sales team, your customer service team, your loyalty and rewards programs, all of those play a huge role in that kind of lifetime value aspect that I was talking about. So it absolutely is part of kind of how we define commerce as that kind of CX layer, right?
Yeah, Olin, in my mind, when I'm hearing you talking about that, we've talked so much on this podcast about like how businesses are approaching this future. And this is really kind of the first time we've really gotten to talk about like, what's the consumer experience with all this new technology. And I feel like commerce is the one that would hit the hardest because it's part of our everyday lives. You're making purchases all day, every day. At least I know we are in my family. And, a good example, like when shopping for clothes, right? Like that's probably now about to become easier than ever when AI and models start getting involved. So I would love your perspective, Olin, that, as these companies are thinking about the customer more now than ever, right? It seems like we've gone from a time where options were endless and that loyalty and that passion may have fallen flat a little bit over the last 5 or so years, just because there's just so many different options where people weren't tying emotion to purchases as much as they like. It was more so like, let me just find the cheapest or let me just find the quickest way to do it. But it seems like there's now an initiative, and you're probably hearing this, is that the time is now to start really building back that loyalty and that relationship with the consumer, and how this process can help that.
Yeah, and that's critical, Ryan. When you start thinking about the customer data, right? It's different channels have different parts of the customer data, right? Like you think through a retailer, the data who owns that relationship can become muddy, right? The brand sometimes is losing some of that interaction. So gaining that back is becoming increasingly important. So you see companies wanting to engage in different channels and doing everything they can to put their brand out there and kind of own that communication, which is why that customer service and that loyalty aspect of it becomes super important. But then it's also why collaborating from a data standpoint becomes important, right? So data clean rooms are a key piece to being successful and kind of engaging with your customers. Being able to centralize your data into one ecosystem and have the ability to be actionable within it. And we're in a position with AI kind of coming into the fold where there's going to be another shift. And brands are probably scared in the sense that they're going to lose some of that connectivity even more, right? There's some data, 30 to 50% of certain industries transactions are going to happen and shifting into kind of LLMs. I know from an automotive standpoint, 30% of searches are happening without even going in, are kind of like not leading into the web experience. So you're losing a lot of that interaction. So how brands react to it is going to be important.
Yeah. Well, I know I want to actually have you talk a bit more around some of the tech behind it, but maybe before we go deeper into that, I'm just kind of curious. I'm putting myself in the mind of either the CMO or maybe even thinking of like when you think about, hey, we got this award on Forrester, how we talked to Jake a second about like, well, where does it fit between MarTech, marketing, commerce? Like, I'd love for you to give a little bit more context, Olin, around where is the recipients of the these elements. How much of it is it really a marketing play, data play, tech play? Just help a little bit deconstruct and how you shift and change some of the messagings that help based on really what business and problem we're trying to solve and what executives owning that particular problem.
Yeah, I think the CMO is still kind of where a lot of our work is happening, right? But the marketing ecosystem has historically been very fragmented, right? It's you have a channel, right? Whether it's your direct to consumer, you have your social media, and every of those have different teams. So bringing it all together, I think, is very important. I think what it comes down to, and kind of the why it's important, is because companies are leaving money on the table, right? When you have strategies that are built by different teams through different channels, they are all leveraging different KPIs, right? So you have a media company, media agency that is working towards impressions, right? Then you have a CRM agency that is helping you with click-through rates and open rates and engagement. You have a direct-to-consumer part that's focused on conversion rates, right? All of those can demonstrate, hey, we're being successful, right? But at the end of the day, they are not driving towards a cohesive goal, right? And what's happening is you're not having a consistent experience. And at the end of the day, you're spending money inefficiently, right? Where if you're able to centralize across a consistent goal, right? We're going to increase transactions. We're going to lower or improve our margins. We're going to go after new customers. Those are all metrics that when you are putting a strategy together across all of those different channels and across all of those different teams, you're actually going to be a lot more efficient and drive better results. So putting that into place, however, is hard, especially when companies have multiple agencies, right? When you have one group doing one thing and then another one doing something else, they're not talking to each other. What we bring to the table from an Omnicom standpoint is breaking through those silos, right? It's being able to connect all of your data, but then also connect your strategy across the board, right? So by coming in with this setup, you're able to become a lot more efficient with your dollars and your investments.
That's great. I'll ask you a similar question, Olin, and it might in some ways be an extension of what you're just describing, but I think, going back to talking about clean rooms, I think for a lot of business leaders, they don't realize like how complex this world is now. So my question for you, Olin, is if you abstract out a little bit, what does good look like in the world of commerce right now? Like if you were to sit down with an executive and just paint a picture for them of like, hey, look, if you're top of the class, here's the things that you're doing. What does that even look like?
Yeah, I'm going to answer my perspective. And the caveat is that it's probably slightly different for different industries, right? But at a high level, you need at the center of it a intelligence hub, right? So data insights and having the ability to pull different data sets in order to be actionable, right? So from a data ingestion standpoint, is pulling in data from your media channels, pulling data from your retail media channels, from your CRM, right? So customer data, first-party data, second-party data, third-party data into one system that then allows you to be able to activate it, right? And the activation piece is not easy either, right? That's where CDPs come into place, right? So being able to take first-party data, build segments, build propensities that then get sent out to those other systems that we just kind of consumed from, to be able to create lookalike models, create better attribution, better segmentation within their systems, but then also be able to activate it as those customers are starting to engage with your own channels, right? So having your dynamic content capabilities, having your personalization capabilities enabled and consistent with the media messaging that you are kind of sending those through, right? So at a super high level, you're talking about a robust kind of CDP, customer data platform ecosystem, a data collaboration system, meaning data clean rooms, robust CRM, a robust taxonomy that allows you to build these kind of dynamic experiences that are talking across, various systems, right? Whether it's your activation channels or email, SMS, text, social, retail, and having them all really kind of connected into each other, right?
You mentioned retail media a couple of times, and I know that it is one of those things that's particularly hot right now. I also know it's one of those things that some people hear and you're like, wait, what now? Can you explain what retail media is in terms that maybe business executives would track?
Yeah, and I actually heard a definition by one of our sister agencies, Flywheel, that I think made it really easy to understand. And it's the monetization of companies' data and properties, right? So if you think about Amazon, right, they have a lot of really good data, and they have a property, Amazon.com, and others, right? They have TV and others. So they've been able to monetize it through ads their data and their properties. So I really kind of like that definition. What that means is, companies like Macy's that have multiple brands are able to take their data and their properties and monetize it. And that market has just taken off, right? I mean, over the past 5 years, they've grown faster than, social media and search. So it's targeted to overtake just regular media spend in the next, 5-10 years. So that's why it's such a big piece, right? And companies are actually being able to use it as a profit engine more than the products that they're actually selling or comparable to it.
If you're an executive who is not using retail media right now, but hears that and is like, oh, maybe I should go look at that. What do you do? How do you get started on that one?
You can talk to us or from an Omnicom standpoint.
I wasn't shilling for the plug, but
he's like
the phone number right up in the right hand of the corner
pretty
of the video.
certain I have a metric I got to hit this year, and
smash that subscribe button.
Yeah,
QR code coming up. No, I think it's understanding what channels you're selling through. So if you're a brand that is wanting to sell through different channels, it's understanding where your customers are buying, and then do testing within those channels, retail media networks. If you're a retailer is trying to think through is like, do you have a property and the data to monetize it, right? And then certainly agencies like us can kind of help them make that analysis. And if you do, you can kind of build that ecosystem, and there's different tools and solutions to kind of help do that.
Cool.
Okay, we heard what good looks like. Now I'm a CMO saying, I want to get to that point. Do I start with use cases? Where do I start? And then, working with, as marketing and IT are now closer than ever, and that data component, how does that look in your eyes? That process of starting like this process from the, I don't want to say the beginning, but I need to rethink how I'm organizing all these things. It's
a great question. And you're spot on, Ryan. At the end of the day, we take a kind of 4-pronged approach to building out these types of experiences, right? There's a strategy side of things, and that's where your use cases come through, right? So we look at the journey, the customer experience, and try to identify what are the areas of friction that we need to remove. And those produce use cases, capabilities that we need to then go out and enable it. And then after that, we look at kind of 3 things at the same time. We look at the technology that is going to enable it, the data that's going to power it, and the content, the message that ultimately we want to communicate, so that we can create these experiences, right? And based on all those kind of 4 components, we're able to make sure that we're building those experiences and we're prioritizing the technology and kind of gaps that we need to kind of go after and enable those in that priority order, right?
Great. I'm going to give Olin a break because we're peppering him for questions, and actually
that's fun.
What's fun? It's kind of like back here, we're making some popcorn, enjoying the show. But Jake, I want to maybe now shift a bit to you. You spend a lot of time with C-suite executives, a lot of innovation, AI themes really around trying prioritizations. I'd love to kind of know, how do you help incorporate some of that components that Olin's talking about, commerce perspective? Where do you think that falls within the agendas that you're seeing with your clients right now?
Ooh, that's a good question. So off the top of my head, I think what just about every company we've been talking to lately has been wrestling with is, I was going to say one of 2 things, but really it's one thing with 2 permutations. But it's this question of, what the heck should I be doing with AI, and what is the world going to look like given what's happening with AI? And there's a point, I know we always talk about AI, but there's a point in bringing it up. I think you guys both saw, was it Block this week?
Yeah.
Announced,
couldn't avoid it.
40% reduction in their headcount. And I don't know where it has settled, but I saw that, the immediate pop on the stock was like something on the order of 30%. Yeah. And I'm not getting into the people side of that. There's very real implications there, but that is an example of the challenge, like the core challenge that I think most executives in our world are dealing with in some form. Where I bring that back to Olin's, Olin, everything that you're describing as far as, hey, here's where commerce is going. There's almost, here's what good looks like today. And then here's where all of this is going and what good's going to look like tomorrow when, the world continues to evolve and we don't have 30% of searches that aren't going to the website, but 80%. So I say that to say, I don't know if that quite answers your question, but I think that's what's top of mind for all executives is, okay, well, what is the world going to look like? And then what are the pieces that I need to have to enable us to succeed in that world?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Then maybe a follow-up for both of you then is like, well, how do you start to break that reality, 30-80%? Like that's a really interesting component. Like obviously, you use the block example, and there's others. It's been what a crazy couple of weeks on just the impact of really the models and the software companies and so. But now you're back. You're again CMO today. You know that you're going to theoretically lose control of your experiences and your journeys with the way the day is going to go. What do you about that today? How do you start building for that future? How do you start to tie that back to 2026? And I love both from an innovation perspective, and then Olin really from yours is out there and is an expert in what we are helping our clients do this.
Yeah, Olin, you want to take it first, or you want a minute to think?
No, I think that's good. It's a great kind of question. I think it's interesting because we're building right now a point of view on kind of agentic commerce readiness, right? My team is, and what is coming out of it is coming back to the basics, right? It's doing things that we've been talking about for many years now, right? It's a different way of doing SEO, for example, where it's really not just about putting content out there and putting in a lot of content, right? It's making sure that you are putting relevant content out there and that it's searchable and findable, right? And then from a technology standpoint, it's composable commerce, right? It's making sure that your application is API driven, right? These are concepts that we've been working on for many, many years now. But those are the people that are doing those and have been doing those are going to be the ones that are going to be better prepared for that future. And then the next piece is experimentation, right? Things are moving so fast that the companies that are testing things out as they come out, trying to stay away from ahead of the curve, are going to be the ones that are going to be able to react faster because their team knows it, because they're able to do the things that are coming out and have better agility to kind of to shift. So it's a super exciting piece, but at the same time, it comes back to, you have clean data, you have API driven systems, you're going to be better positioned to move forward.
I think that's a really good answer. I was actually going to say something similar.
You don't get to steal his answer. I need uniqueness here, Jake.
We just changed the microphone so that it sounds like it was.
I'm going to give you a new question.
I do have an answer.
Well, you can give your answer, but maybe another plus one is how would, we talk about the answer to that, what things about that for 26, and then how do we measure success for a bit of 26?
Ooh, now that is a good ad. Okay, so let me riff on both actually. So the first thing I was going to say is, if I rewind the clock, I think there's an interesting maybe comfort that can come from, look, this isn't the first time this has happened. Your original question was, how do you deal with giving up the experience? It's not the first time that, the experience has been given up. So, and this isn't the only example, but if you just think about, remember when responsive web came out and we moved from this world of static web page to, wait, now I've got to have a web page that accommodates this form factor and this form factor and this form factor, and it needs to work on a watch and on a phone and on a bigger phone and on a tablet. There was a freak out of, well, but then I can't control the experience. Like, I don't know what the experience is going to be. We worked through that. And we have this whole new suite of ways of crafting experiences that work in a myriad of devices. So I guess if I'm a CMO and I'm listening and I'm wrestling with, I'm going to give up the experience, I guess my comfort is, hey, it's happened before and it works out. My answer actually was going to be very similar to, now I'm turning to the, what do you actually do? And then I'll talk about how do you measure this. I was going to say, and this is my answer that's similar to Olin's, is the best thing you can do right now is you can cultivate organizational muscle. I know I go back to Rita McGrath all the time, and I'm going to go back to Rita McGrath again. If you're living in a world where you can't see exactly what the end state is going to be, the best thing that you can do is you can create options. Yeah. And you can build muscle that's going to give you the ability to react. And that's where, similar to what Olin was saying, that's going to create the agility. And then how do you measure? My interesting twist on that for this year is, yes, we should be measuring all of the KPIs that you're already measuring, because that's going to identify the trends that are durable on how is customer experience changing. But I would also suggest, maybe this is the year where you throw in the measurements around how many things are we trying to measure, are you building the muscle?
Yeah, that really resonates. And I'm just going to use now an internal example from my own, from us, our day job. Really, I had a chance, we're looking through how we were taking some of these themes across the way we serve our clients, and was getting kind of a roadmap of sorts of what that would look like over the next 6 months. And my challenge is that we don't quite know what it's going to look like. We don't know what to do, but I wanted to see more just actual progress of some of it, because we don't know what we need to do exactly, doesn't mean that we can't take measurable steps, pick stuff win. I mean, things are so happening, iterating so fast right now. And the challenge back to our team was, it's not about like this, we're going to get here, we're going to run it this way, but just get stuff done. And through that, and through those short-term wins, so working through that, it's going to get better. I mean, I think in this element, again, if I'm going back to the CMO, kind of that, using that as the proxy of who's the business decision, it's changing rapidly. That can be paralyzing. So how do you take areas where you can make improvement, whether it be retooling of your team, thinking about it differently, understand how you think about where's that data. I mean, I think right now thinking about really, talk about the form factors are really good change, thinking about, again, how that experience is going to be different. Frankly, in some ways, their customers are going to be a little bit smaller. I mean, your customers are going to be, you're going to have all your direct customers, but how you think about how you show up in a certain number of models and how you do that, it's going to be maybe somewhat, you lose control, but you actually have a smaller place where you can influence it. And so it's going to just be an interesting element, but I think just progress for itself is so important right now on these different elements.
I don't know, for me, and y'all may call me crazy here, but as I think about commerce, and in most cases, there at some point is going to be some sort of in-person interaction. And I get now there's a lot of online shops and retailers that don't have a brick and mortar or anything like that. But to me, when I think about okay, if you're somebody that's deciding where to put dollars, and if you're able to unlock your online store and it's all AI driven and that's all taken care of on top of it all, I could see a world, and I've always thought this of, going back to the younger generation, for my nieces and nephews in particular, everything they do is online, but they always talk about striving to it would be really cool to see this before I made a purchase. It'd be really cool to go try this on before I made a purchase. So for me, I'm if the world is headed where everything's going to be automated online by AI and all these experiences by AI, maybe there's a world where some of that dollars and attention can shift to replanting physical aspects of your business to then control that touch point as a way to pivot, right? Again, when you were talking about turning back the clock to the responsive websites, I went back even further I could only imagine what the uproar was when the internet came out and you're wait a second, I want people to come into my store. I don't want them just to go online. I want to be able to ask them how their day is and all those things. I legit, and again, call me crazy, I could see a world where it goes back to, because everything online is AI driven, that people will still want to have some sort of physical interaction with the product or goods or services. And that's where dollars could turn attention towards in the future.
There's still a projection is, 70 plus transactions are going to happen in physical stores, right? So the physical store is not going to go away, right? And I say physical store, physical transactions, right? Whether it's in the auto industry or whatever it is, it's people are still going to want to interact with the product, with the brand in a physical way. The whole experience before it and after it is what's ultimately changing. And yeah, maybe that goes down and maybe that continues to evolve. But I don't see a world where there's no need for physical stores. So I think it's important for us to kind of continue to invest and understand how is, AI going to impact those, right? I mean, we were just at NRS and we're seeing AI being leveraged on how salespeople interact with customers and how sales merchandise the stores themselves, right? So it's they're getting more efficient, right? Where you were able to put in, a store manager in a store and they would have to need 3 to 4 people to support certain activities. You now can kind of give them an iPad, and with AI, they can do their job a lot more efficiently, right? So those are the types of things that are going to continue to change, and kind of how AI is going to evolve. Really, all of the touch points that we've been talking about, it's not about completely removing them, right? Social's not going away. Search is not going away. It's just changing.
Which I think is, well, one, it's interesting that you bring that example up, Olin, just because we were talking about that right before we start recording. One of our clients that just is, we're helping with that exact experience, or how they can use a tablet working with the customers in a retail showroom. But, I think that this is one of the really cool themes. I know we've talked about this before, is that just, there's just so much more excitement around the human element that's going to be empowered by AI, where, not that long ago, it was a very different fear. And you still have the examples of people's livelihoods and things are changing, but at least it's just so encouraging for me to think about how you're going to really use the human ingenuity, spark, curiosity, all those things that we talk about to really continue to drive what we do. And I think that this is why, commerce and all its different implications of where that action happens, loyalty, how you get the right place, time. There's so many really cool elements that happen within this kind of vein of how you serve your customers and grow your clients. And so it's exciting times.
That was a theme in kind of the NRF show. It's the humanity of AI is at the forefront. So a lot of brands are thinking about that. I think it's very important. It's a great call out.
So I have, Olin, you got more things you want to share, you can do that. But I am curious, and you go back in your 18, 20 year career of doing commerce, I'd love to give a couple really memorable moments for you of where something that you were able to answer, something that's kind of cool, and just you get to spend so much of your time selling, everything from, you've been selling cars most recently, you sell a lot of different stuff, but I'm kind of curious, some cool stories in the vault of your commerce experience.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the analytics story at the beginning of the day. I remember getting access to Google Analytics, and I was just, completely impressed and amazed by how much information we were actually able to see as kind of like customers interacting with the brand. I think working in the fashion industry was eye-opening for me. Just kind of being able to see how you can marry the brand experience, right? I remember worked for a Brazilian flip-flop company, and they actually used BBDO as their creative, right? And then kind of they walk through the process of how do you build this brand and kind of the designs for these flip-flops, right? And kind of this big, and then being able to represent that in a digital space, again, was in my early stages of my career, was, super exciting, right? It's like, hey, we can actually build these really creative experiences and really engaging experiences in the digital space. And since then, I mean, things have just completely evolved. Some of the things that we're doing with our auto clients around, simulations of the car within the digital space are always exciting. So I always go back to like being really effective at creating this brand experience within all of your different touch points, and how technology is really allowing these brands to be successful in that space.
Olin, I know you do a lot of work with companies optimizing their commerce experience, meaning I know you do a lot of setting up the systems too, but that the system's in place, let's just go, make improvements to improve lift. What's the best improvement you've ever seen from a commerce optimization standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, the one that comes to mind is actually one that we worked together on, Jake, is we had a client that was in the retail space, and they had gone through a redesign, and they were very much, hey, we had an old design, it needs to be new. So they made a lot of really wholesale changes, and their conversion rate dropped dramatically. So they were thinking that it was going to be this kind of silver bullet type of fix. And what we did is we created a process of test and learn optimization, where we would take, session recordings, analytics, and create a backlog of opportunities that we think are going to drive. The one that comes to mind was exposing the search bar on a mobile device, right? We had seen in the previous experience, it was the search bar was exposed. So we're like, hey, we should be able to try this. This seems to be, this brand has thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of SKUs. So it was very search driven. And yes, from a mobile standpoint, it was probably, too much of property But exposing that search bar, so that small kind of tweak, allowed us to increase conversion rate by, I forget the exact percentage that number, but it was something like 10%, which equated kind of like the cost of, a year's worth of tests, right? So it was, it was a great return on investment. And it was really cool and neat to see.
Well, that's fun.
I don't know. It's interesting. I hear this and I'm thinking about if Olin is ever able to take a break or rest his brain from thinking about commerce, just because when I think about some of the verticals we work in or projects that I've worked on, I'm able to go home and I don't have to see it and I can kind of put it away till the next day. But I feel like for you, Olin, anytime you're on a mobile device, on any website, your mind is probably spinning, thinking about all the possibilities and opportunities with just right there, like a search bar, right? Something that, some of us probably wouldn't think twice on, but you see that as opportunity. I mean, do you ever get to rest or able to shut it off? Or, are you?
I do. I try not to be too critical. I think
that's our job.
when I'm not at work, it's funny though. Like so many times I'm like, sitting in the couch and my wife Allie is, on her phone, and she's always just like, you need to go find whoever made this website, and
yes,
you got to tell them to fix it. And I was like, all right, I'm on it.
Yes. If it makes you feel better, I think we all get that.
Yes, we all. I think my wife tells me stop doing that. Stop. I get really frustrated at whatever the current variant of the Domino's pizza oven is. But yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I had the same on the like restaurant side of things. Again, I owned a restaurant. Food was a big part of my life. And everybody's like, oh, you must be like, whenever you go to restaurants, you must be like critical of everything and things like that. And it's like, I try to disconnect. I'm like, I'm just coming in and trying to enjoy myself. So
Olin, I'd love to give you the opportunity. Obviously, it's been a huge Q1 for you. It's been a huge, 18 to 20 years in your life in commerce, but especially with the Forrester Wave article. That's massive. I would love for your just overall final thoughts as we wrap this thing up, and maybe just any tips or tricks or advice that you could give to those CMOs out there listening, leadership listening, of just, not only like, hey, it doesn't have to be as complicated as all this sounds, back to the basics, like you mentioned earlier. Just any final thoughts like that.
Yeah, no, I think that touches it, right? It's clean data, is making sure that you're looking at your customer experience as kind of the forefront, right? It's understand as much as you can what your customer is wanting, and then build an ecosystem that allows you to use your data to communicate with them at the right time, at the right channel, with the right message. It sounds daunting, but I think if you're able to kind of prioritize and go back to the basics, it's not that hard.
Final thoughts from you guys?
Only it's just so fun to hear you talk and many years of working together with you, and just to see the growth and all that stuff, just even the elements of the journey of where you came from, where you're at. So thank you so much for your service and friendship, and just love to see you be able to be a pure expert in what you do. Come a long ways from trying to force you be a commerce expert into a generalist consultant, now back into your actual craft. So thank you for that. Love that you get this award. I know that you represent a lot of people behind that. You'd be the first to say that, but I also know that you're out there every day finding new ways for us to serve our customers with that. So thank you for that. I'm excited for all you do in 2026.
Beautifully said.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, Jake, would you like to say nice things about our guest as well, please?
No, tell Mila I said hi. Send the brownie recipe over my way. We can maybe make it for Kevin. And no, congratulations. And it's fun to hear all of the wisdom you've got around commerce.
Thank you. Dan, it's been a great fun journey, and with these changes happening, I know it's gonna get even more fun and exciting. So look forward to it.
So Olin Moran,
I'll bring brownies next time.
There you go. That's Olin Moran, our king of commerce. The crown is in the mail, by the way, from Forrester. So that should be arriving in 3 to 5 business days. And you'll have to, we'll update your headshot with that crown, because you certainly deserve it, Olin. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you tuning into this one and joining us and just providing such great insight.
Thank y'all.
Awesome. Well, for myself, Ryan, for Kevin, for Jake, this has been another edition of the Pure Signal podcast, reminding you to be bold. And I'm going to have Jake say it this time.
To infinity and beyond.
be curious.
Oh, right.
But
Be
also, like,
curious.
we'll take you know infinity and beyond.
It's a coin toss.
Oh, no.
I just love keeping y'all on the hot seat.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
All right.
Be
this is it.
curious. Be bold.
Yeah. Be curious. Be bold. And hit us up if you need commerce. Thanks, everyone.